Good morning. This is VirtualPBX and Dash admin training. Sorry for the slightly late start here. Wasn't getting confirmation that the stream was actually live. But let's go ahead and get started with our admin training here. So on the page here, you see the Dash login page, which is dash.virtualpbx.com. You can also get there via the VirtualPBX website, mouse over support, and there's a link there for Dash login. You'll need your email address, the password that should have been sent to you via email, and your account name, which is typically your company name. Now, for some reason you don't have your password or can't remember it, you can click down here towards the bottom right on Forgot Your Password, or Forgot Your Info, excuse me. And you see here, we still need your email address, and then we need either the account name or a phone number that's on the account. Then you click on Reset Password. You'll get an email with a link to change your password. Once you change your password, the system will log you back out and then make you log back in with that new password. Plus you get the opportunity to click on Remember Me, so that way you don't have to memorize yet another password. And we'll go ahead and get loaded up here. It takes a little bit. Alright, now this is, or what I'm using here is a test account that's been active for quite a while. If you've just signed up or it's your first time logging in, you're actually started off on a different page, which we'll get to by clicking on my name up here at the top. And here is my user page information. So that first time you log in, Dash takes you here, a little wizard pops up giving you highlights of what certain things are. This is where you would change your own personal email address or password for your user and for the account. You can also change your time zone. Now, as an admin, I also have the account level settings. And the main thing that is changed here is typically the time zone, just to make sure you're in the correct time zone for your business location. Now, on live accounts, you also have an additional section below the user for your billing related information. So this is where you would update your credit card information, your billing contact info. You could see your service plan as well as your invoices. Now, once you're done in this area, you just click on the close button at the top right, and you'll be taken to the dashboard. Up here at the top here, also, you've got the D&D toggle. Basically, D&D is short for Do Not Disturb. If I click on it, you'll see it's going to update. Little white space is highlighted there. That means I'm on Do Not Disturb mode. Meaning, if someone transfers a call to me, they get the voicemail. If I'm in an ACD queue, I'm not offered a call. That sort of thing. Next up, we got the little help icon. And these 4 options here. So 1, chat with us. This opens up a chat window to speak to our support team so they can walk you through a feature that you're going through. Learn more. This will take you to the support pages so you can find the specific guide of a feature that you're looking for, and in some cases video of walking you through that setup. We have the web phone. This only shows up once you've added a web phone to your user, and that allows you to use Chrome or Firefox to make and receive calls over your internet connection. And then lastly, we have the online store, which goes to store.virtualpbx.com. This is where you can buy a VoIP phone or a router or headsets, that sort of thing. And then we have here the hamburger menu icon. This takes you to other features of Dash. We're on the dashboard right now, but we'll be going over most of these, and any that have an additional fee associated with it or on a different plan, or a plan specific, I should say. I will try to highlight that. And then here we have the logout icon. On the left, we have other core features of Dash, which we'll be getting to shortly. And then here, we've got your total users. So these are all your staff members who are making and receiving calls. Depending on your plan, adding users may increase your bill, so that's something to be aware of. Then we got my total devices and of 32 and a breakdown. First one here is cell phone, pretty self-explanatory. Then I've got web phone, which I just briefly talked about. Next, third is soft phone. Just to be clear, a web phone is technically a specialized version of a soft phone. And a soft phone itself is software application that you use to make and receive calls. Right? It's going to use your internet connection. It's VoIP, right? So voice over internet protocol. Speaking of VoIP, the SIP phone, this is a physical device, right? So a physical phone that sits on someone's desk. Again, connects to your internet connection to make and receive calls. And then landline is pretty self-explanatory. You notice down here I have unregistered devices. That's 10. That means 10 of my VoIP devices are not connected to Dash, right? So they don't have an internet connection. Maybe they're not plugged in. Maybe someone's having a network issue or a network setting problem, that sort of thing. Okay, and then we have total numbers. I have 28 numbers. On your accounts, you have anywhere from 1 to 15 phone numbers as part of your plan price per month, right? So that's basically a pool of numbers you can have. Once you go over that, you're going to be charged per number, and that's, I believe it's $1.99 to $4.99 per month per phone number. It's going to vary by plan, so that if that's something you're concerned about, you're going to want to check with our account services team to verify what your pricing is on that. Down here, we got a breakdown first of assigned numbers and spare numbers. So an assigned number means you're using it, right? It goes to someone or a group of people or to a voicemail box or it's your fax box number, right? In some fashion, it is being utilized, right? Spare numbers, number on your account, so it still counts towards your allotment of phone numbers, but you're not using it currently, right? That could be because you got a block of numbers that were in sequence and you just haven't gotten to the last numbers in that sequence. Or you're using it for a specific advertising campaign. That campaign's over. You're like, okay, let's just make the number in spare so that way we're not getting all sorts of useless calls on a number, for a promotion that's no longer running. Next up, we've got a breakdown between USDID and US toll-free. And US toll-free is really US Canadian toll-free, right? So toll-free 800 number, 888-877, all the way down to 833. USDID, that just means a US local phone number, right? So a number in San Jose, California versus, say, a number in Des Moines, Iowa, or anywhere else in the country. If you're interested in an international phone number, you can add those to your Dash account. However, you will need to email our porting team, that's PORTING @virtualpbx.com. They will need to know the city and country that you want a phone number in. If there's additional requirements, the porting team will let you know. Like Germany, for example, requires proof of presence within the city that you're requesting a phone number in, i.e. like a utility bill. Other countries are less stringent, others are more stringent. Just so, again, they'll have to let you know. Conference bridges, 4. That means I have enabled conferencing on 4 of my users so they can host a conference. Over here on the right, main number, right? These are all my main numbers. So these numbers all behave the same way. They're all going to go to the same location initially. They're all going to have the same main greeting. Here's my conference room number. This is what the phone number everyone uses to access the conferencing, whether they're a staff member or an outside entity coming in, customer or a vendor. Fax box number. This activates faxing on your Dash account. This is actually your inbound fax phone number. And you can only have one fax box number by default. The company directory, this is a download link. It simply downloads a text file that will have your users and their extension numbers. The soft phone directory, download link. This is for use with the VirtualPBX desktop soft phone application, whether on Mac OS or Windows. So you would download this file and then upload it to the VirtualPBX soft phone app. And this will let you see the status of your staff members in relation to their soft phone, right? So I use a desktop cell phone on a Mac, so I can see, oh, my coworker Bob, he's on a call right now, so I can't talk to him about, you know, a mutual customer of ours. That sort of thing. Versus, oh, you know, other coworker Mike, he's available. There's some documentation I need to talk to him about, so I can just give him a call real quick and get that cracked out. Right, down here we've got the store discount code. So just for being a Dash customer, you get a discount in the online store. And then lastly here we've got the account realm. You use this for a couple different things. One, it's one of the key pieces of information if you're going to program a third-party soft phone application, right? So you're not using the VirtualPBX soft phone app, you're using a soft phone app from, say, Counterpath. You would need this piece of information, the account realm, to help set that up. Likewise, you could use the third-party soft phone credentials to program a VoIP phone that's not supported by us to potentially work with your account. And the last thing it's used for is for faxing out. So on Dash, faxing is an email to fax service, right? So you create an email in your normal email client or portal. In the to field of that email, you put the plus sign, the number 1, area code and phone number you're faxing to, the @ symbol, and then your account realm. And then you simply attach a PDF or a TIFF file and you click send, right? You don't need to type in the body of the email because nothing you type there will actually be transmitted, right? The PDF, basically, you send the email off, the system grabs the phone number saying, okay, this is the destination, gets your account realm so it knows where it's coming from, and then it grabs the PDF saying this is what I'm transmitting and converting into an analog signal, right? It doesn't look at anything within the body or the title of the email. So if you want to have like a fax cover sheet, for instance, you want to make sure you include that in your PDF to be sent out. Right. Up here at the top, we've got caller ID. This is pull down, well, not showing up on this, but you can choose any of your main phone numbers. And this, whatever number you select becomes your default number for a couple other features. Then we got the company caller ID name, CNAME. This can be 15 characters, including spaces and special characters. Once you click on Save Changes, that information gets transmitted to the other carriers who support CNAME to update their databases. This takes up to about 3 business days to be completed. And that's the amount of control we have over CNAME. Right, so we can provide the information out there and make sure that the other people who support CNAME have it updated. But ultimately, the other end of that process is delivery, which is handled by the carrier that is sending the call, to that last device. Right. So basically, when you make an outbound call, right, it can go through several different carriers before it reaches the destination phone. So one, if any of those carriers in between don't support CNAME, the CNAME information doesn't make it to the destination phone. But most importantly, it's that last carrier, right? They control what shows up on the phones on their network. That's especially true for cell phones, but even for landline carriers. So if they don't support CNAME, it won't show up. If they haven't updated their database, it may have the wrong information. Even for the carriers who do support CNAME, it's not a super high priority. Right? If they have heavier than expected call volume or an outage, maintenance issue, what have you, again, their first priority, connect calls, and then the caller ID phone number, and then in distant third is the CNAME information. Next up, you've got the company emergency information, or E911. Want to put an address associated with this phone number, and basically this is when someone picks up a VoIP phone, dials 911, this is the default address that gets sent out. Now, on your particular VoIP devices, you can select which phone number they use for E911 purposes, and then that will have the appropriate address associated with them. And if you make any changes, then you click Save Changes here at the bottom. Oops. Not quite sure why I got an error there. Next up, we've got hold music. So Dash, you can upload your own files. You just need to find it on your computer. Dash will accept or playback .wav or .mp3 files. We recommend that you record in mono and that the file size is under 1 megabyte. But then you would find the file, you would click a little upload icon, and then you would click save changes. Now, music on hold is specifically that, right? This only comes into play when a call actually reaches one of your users, and then they press hold on their VoIP phone, right? So when a inbound caller is actually placed on hold, that's when this file will play. Calls coming in, generally speaking, they're only going to hear ringing, whether that's to a group or a queue, etc. Hours is actually part of main number, so let's just dig into main number from the top and work our way down. Main number does usually take a little bit longer to load up, just because there's a lot of different features involved in there. There we go. So up at the top, we've got our main company numbers. You see I have these 4 here. Now, if I decide I don't want to use one of these numbers any longer as a main number, I can click on a sign next to it. And then now it's no longer a main number. Now the number is still on my account. It became a spare number. So I haven't removed it yet from the account. We'll get to that when we get down to numbers here. Now, if you ever need to add a number, you can always add from your spare numbers. Right, so I can select any of these 3. Or let's say, oh, we're moving into a new market, for instance. I can click on by numbers. And then I can select local or toll free. So local, you need to select an area code. So let's go with 323. And now you see the list of available numbers. You can scroll down and the list should populate a little bit further. You can just choose a number you like. It adds it to the cart. You can see the number here. Little trash can icon if you change your mind. You can add multiple numbers at once. And then you would click on buy numbers. This process, the system making sure that number was truly available because it's a dynamic list. And then it's adding it to your account and then activating, basically making sure it works. And you just have to wait for it to get to that process. And there we go. For toll-free, it's a little bit easier because you have, the toll-free prefixes. So you choose the prefix you want to look at. But beyond that, it's the same process. It'll give you a list, you choose, you click on by numbers at the end. Next to any of your numbers, you can click on the little gear icon. You can update the caller ID. Right, so you can have outbound CNAM for each individual phone number if you like. You can also turn on the ability so that the inbound CNAM information will be transmitted to your staff members. You've got E911, right? So you can set up the address information for that specific phone number. So that becomes an option for all your VoIP phones to choose from. Prepend is a VoIP feature. Basically, you can add text in front of the caller ID, and this will show up on your VoIP phone users, on the VoIP phone's displays, right? Just to give your staff a heads up about what the call might be about. Numbers do have an option for messaging. This business SMS is a plan-specific feature, so it's something you're interested in. You are going to need to talk to our account services team. On your main company numbers, to make use of messaging, you need to have the Zapier integration or webhooks as an account feature to make it work, right? You can also have numbers on a user specifically and have messaging enabled on a number on a user. And in that scenario, you do not need the Zapier integration or webhooks, but on the main number you do. Next up, we got the office hour strategy. If you're a new sign up, right, you just signed up today, then you're going to start off at 24-hour open office, meaning, hey, your system can take calls, right? Your numbers will not ring busy. Many customers choose to go to custom office hours, and then for each day of the week that you're open, you put a check mark in front of that day. And then in these boxes here to the right, you select your open hours in 24-hour or military time. Down, you also have an option, which may not be showing up on YouTube, but you can opt to have your whole office or whole facility closed for lunch, right? So like doctor's office, right? Everyone says, hey, we're closed for lunch, and they all go out to lunch. If you do that, then you put a check mark in front of are you closed for lunch, and then you input your lunch hours. Next up, you have office holidays. If you're closed for holidays, put a check mark in front of that. And then over here towards the right, you click on add holiday, and then you have your option for single day, date range, or advanced. Right, so single day is like what I have here for President's Day. So each one of those options creates a new row. So you give it a name, so you'll recognize it, and then you select the month and the day. Right. Date range, like I have up here for Christmas, right, starts on December 23rd, ends on December 26th. Now, the one thing to keep in mind about date range is that there's no year indicator. So you want to make sure that you do not have a date range that includes New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. Right? Because there's no year indicator, the system basically puts you in after hours mode all year. The advanced option is like this retreat here, where I'm just saying, hey, the first Friday in July, we're closed, right? We're company picnic day. Right? So you have all the months, and then this pull down is first through fourth as well as last, and then each day of the week. And then any changes you would click on save changes. All right, next up we've got the incoming call handling. So along the top here, I have open hours, I have after hours, and I have holidays. And you notice the options stayed the same. So we'll go through it once instead of each time. So this incoming call handling, this is in relation to all your main numbers at the top, right? So all your main numbers, they're coming here. So during my open hours, I'm having to come to my virtual receptionist. I click on this. It's going to open up a new window. And then you see my main menu, my greetings, and my settings. Now, the main menu, this is what people press on their phone to navigate through your phone system, right, on the dial pad. Your greetings, this is basically where you say thank you for calling, and then you also give instructions on how to navigate through the phone system to that inbound caller, and then some general settings. So, the main menu, to add those options, right, you click on add route. You have default route, 0 through 9, and star. Those are your options. And then you have a pull down here to show where you want calls to go. So, right, smart directory, dial by name directory, right? So the inbound caller presses this option, and then they try to dial people by name. You can send calls to a specific user. You can send calls to an ACD queue. Now, ACD queues do have a fee associated with them. I believe it starts at $15. It will depend on your plan. You can send calls to a specific device. Now, we don't typically recommend this just because if the device doesn't have voicemail, for example, the call will eventually end. So that may not be a great experience for your customers. You can have a specific media file play. Again, not always recommended, just because once the greeting file ends, the call ends. So that may not be the greatest experience for your inbound caller. You can send callers to a group, right? That's a ring group, basically a department. Queues and groups are related in that queues have more advanced routing options than groups. Advanced call flows, this is if you want to make use of submenuing. So like if you want, say press 1 for English, 2 for Spanish, then 1 and 2 become submenus, right? So if you press 1, you get to another menu where you have an English greeting play, and then the options you have will probably go to English speaking staff members. Whereas if people press 2, they're going to get a Spanish greeting that plays, and their menu options are going to go to Spanish speaking staff members, right? So that the second menu is what submenuing is about. And then you can send callers to specific voice mailboxes. And then they all have little different icons, so you know at a glance which is what. Your greetings, you got text to speech. Basically, you type in a greeting, you click on update, and save at the bottom, and then save changes under incoming call handling. The text to speech greeting is about 250 to 350 characters. So keep that limit in mind. If you're going to go over that, you might want just to record it yourself, like over the phone, or just make a file on your computer and then upload. Speaking of upload, you can upload your own files, .wav, .mp3, recorded in mono under 1 megabyte. Just find it on your computer and then click update. You can choose from existing recordings, so that would show your entire recordings list. Then you would click update. Record it over the phone. So by default, the system wants you to use a phone registered to the account. What that means is a VoIP phone that's active on your account. If you don't want to do that, or like you have a friend who's got that great radio voice, then what you would want to do is make sure down here under the settings, allow outside recording is turned on. If that is on, then someone with a cell phone or landline can call in, right? You would call your main number, and then you would enter this PIN number, and then you would record over the phone. Now this PIN number is specific to this time of day, right? So we're in our open hours, so this PIN number only works during open hours, which means I can only change my open hours greeting during my open hours. One thing to keep in mind for record over the phone, if you already have a greeting file in place, right? So you have greeting file A currently plays. If you call in and to record over the phone, you're going to overwrite the content of greeting file A, right? So greeting file A, the file name stays the same, but you have new content. So if you wanted to revert back to the original greeting file A, you don't want to record over the phone until you do a couple different things. Either one, change your open greeting to a different file and then record it over the phone, or upload a new file and then select it from the existing recordings. Professional recording services, we have partnered with another company called Snap Recordings. When you click on the little order link here, it will take you to their website. They have 80 to 100 voice actors and actresses to choose from. They have different versions of English, Spanish, and French available. So you can also do multilingual greetings. They have what they refer to as hold treatment, which is a mix of music and a script being read. They handle their own billing, typically via credit card. They typically deliver via email, and then you would simply just upload your own file. Settings. So number of retries on missed dial. This is basically how many times you're allowing the inbound caller to press an invalid menu option. Right. So in this case, I'm giving them one retry. Right. So they can basically have two attempts. Now, after that last attempt, the system will either send them to the default route, or if you don't have a default route, it will end the call. The dialing timeout. This is measured in seconds. So in this case, 1 second. This is how much time the system waits after it hears a button press before it assumes that the inbound caller is done, right? So I call in, I press 2. The system waits for a second, then says, oh, okay, I'm going to send you to menu option number 2, right? Now, you can extend that if you want to like 2 or 3. It's basically just giving people time to enter extension numbers. We already covered the outside recording, and then this one here, allow dialing extensions. If this is on, that means the inbound caller, they can enter an extension number if they know it, right? If I turn this off, there we go, then they can only press these menu options or get to the default route. They cannot enter an extension number to get to someone else. Now, any changes you make in any of these 3 sections, you want to click Save here. And then you do need to click Save Changes over here under the incoming call handling. And now all your settings have been saved. All right, the second option here, call comes in, and I'm offering it to Aaron. If he doesn't pick up, then it goes to the virtual receptionist. Right, this is your live operator option, right? So inbound caller has a chance to speak to a staff member first. If they're not available, virtual receptionist. And that virtual receptionist, right, it's still under open hours, so it's going to look like the one we just looked at. Assuming it loads. There we go. Right, so same menu options. Right, I can make changes here if I want to, and it would still affect the other receptionist. Third option here, call comes in, offering it to Aaron, and then goes to Aaron's voicemail. Now, these are pull downs, right? So I can send it to different users. I can send it to a media file, a specific device. I can send it to a ring group, etc. This third option does have one additional option where it's skip to voicemail. So basically, call comes in, goes right to the voicemail box. That particular setup I typically see on customers on their holiday scheduling. The fourth option here, call goes to the advanced call flow, right, to one of your other attendants. All right, so you have these same options for your after hours and your holidays. You see I'm going there. Just bear in mind that if you say you're having it go to the virtual receptionist after hours, because it's after hours, it's different than your open hours. So it's going to have different routing. You're going to have a different greeting play, etc. You have completely different settings if you wanted to. The same would apply for the holiday menu. All right, main conference number. You can have multiple conference numbers if you want to, so you can add from spare or by numbers. You can also have a custom greeting. This is a text-to-speech greeting. Right, if you click enable, then you just type in your script, and then you would click save. Even if you don't have this enabled, the system says welcome to the conference, and then prompts the inbound caller to enter the conference room number, and then their PIN number. And then once you assign a main conference number, then you can enable the conference feature on your users. Right. Main fax box number, you can have the one fax box number, and as I mentioned before, that enables faxing. Now, then you can click edit the fax box. On this account, the fax box is broken, so there's no real point in showing it to you. On your account, what would happen is you would get a pop-up window come up, and you have 2 fields. The first field is for the inbound notification, right? So you put in an email address, and that email address gets an email anytime a fax comes into the system with a PDF attachment, so they can then open up the attachment and look at the fax. One thing to keep in mind is if someone dials the 669 number, right, and they hear fax tones and hangs up, that inbound notification email address will get an email saying, hey, you had an incoming fax that failed. So, and that's basically because someone, they hit the wrong number, and they hung up. Just something to be aware of. The second field in the fax box is for the outbound permissions. So like if you own your company domain, you can add that domain into that second field. Everyone at your company who has an email address, right, that ends in that domain can then fax out, even if they're not a Dash customer or Dash user on your account. Right, they just need that proper format of the +1, area code, phone number, @ symbol, account realm, and attach a PDF. All right, we'll go over to auto attendance since I've mentioned it a couple times now. So auto attendants have a couple use cases. Now, let me backtrack a little bit. The auto attendance feature is a plan specific feature. So if this is something that sounds like you want to do and you don't have an option for auto attendance here on the left, you're going to want to talk to our account services team about changing your plan to one that includes multiple auto attendants. The use case for auto attendants, there's two major ones. The first is to have separate standalone attendants, meaning like they're separate businesses. They would have their own phone numbers. They would have their own main greetings. Right. The other one I mentioned under the virtual receptionist is for submenuing. Right. You would make additional attendants for your submenus. So creating an attendant, you would just click on Add Attendant. I think my net connection is slow today. Sorry about that. Hopefully it will load up here shortly. So if you do ever get an error message, you can always click on the more information to see if there's something that's specific. In this case, it's not, which is a little bit strange. Let's see if it'll come up again or if it'll let me go through this time. It might not. Let's click on an existing attendant here. See if it lets me get through it. There we go. So when you create an attendant, you need to give it a name and an extension number. Once you've created it, you can always click on the name. This is where you choose to make it a submenu option. Right, so if it's unavailable, that means it's standalone. Unavailable means it's a submenu, or at least it's an option to be a submenu. Right, attendants can have their own phone numbers. They can have multiple extension numbers if you want them to. The extension number is actually internal for your staff members. Right, your inbound customers inbound callers aren't probably going to know the extension number of an attendant. They'll probably know the phone number. Then you click on the wrench icon here for the settings. And then you see I have open hours, after hours, and holidays. Now these hours match your main number settings, right? Where we did the open hours, right? Your office hours strategy and your holidays, right? It's gonna match those. So if you have, say, two businesses, but one you want open, 7 days a week, and the other is open 5 days a week, then the multiple attendance out of the box will not work for you. You would need to talk to our account services team, basically to see if having custom work done on a single account is more feasible versus having two separate accounts. But in all cases, you only have the option to send the secondary attendance to a virtual receptionist. But then again, you have a main menu where you can add routes, you can have the separate greeting, and then you have these same settings that we already covered. Devices shows all your devices on the account. Green means it's registered, meaning we can send calls to it and from it. Red means it's unregistered, meaning we cannot send calls to it or get calls from it. And black means you have disabled it or turned it off on the account. Now you can add devices here to the account. SIP phone, again, that physical VoIP phone. You can choose your manufacturer and then the specific model. And then you give it a name, and then you need the MAC address of that device. Typically, you can find this on the back of the phone, sticker, like usually labeled MAC, or sometimes serial number. But you can also, with the phone powered on, under generally menu status, one of the status items is the MAC address. It'll be probably just called MAC, and you can record that information here. And then you click on Create Device. Once you click on Create Device, then you can assign it to a staff member. Within the dashboard, there's nothing else you need to do other than assigning it to one of your users. However, you need to access the phone's web user interface, right, the web UI, and you need to add some auto provisioning information. For the specifics of that, go to the dash support pages, and on the right hand side, about a third of the way down, under VoIP devices or VoIP phones, you're looking for the guide called Auto Provisioning Phones. It will have screenshots, and you actually need, there's a specific URL you need to input into your phone's web UI. There might be some other settings depending on your phone manufacturer, but basically you tell the phone, here, go to this URL, it goes there, it gets its config file, it will reboot a couple times at least, but then once it's done, it'll show up as green on the account, and then you're ready to make use of the phone. Cell phone and landline are basically the same. You give it a name, you put +1, area code and phone number, and then you click on Create Device. Now, one thing to keep in mind is, right, this is your standard cell phone here. Now, when Dash sends a call to a cell phone or landline, the phone will ring, and when you pick up, you're going to hear, "This is a forwarded call. Please press 1." Right? When you press 1, you're telling the system, yes, you're ready, and yes, you want to take this call. Right? Or yes, you're there, and yes, please transfer the call. Right? And then at the next call, you can speak to the person. Now, in some cases, when people set up a cell phone or landline, what they're really doing is sending callers to an automated answering service. Well, that automated answering service can't press 1. So what you would do in that situation is you would put a check mark here and in front of allow use of cell phone's voicemail. So now when we send the call, we're not going to wait for that 1 to be pressed, right? We hear that connection tone, we connect the call. Call goes through, your automated answering service can then handle the call. Right? Now, if you do this on your actual cell phone and your cell phone voicemail picks up, then the inbound caller can end up on your personal cell phone's voicemail box. Some people want that, some people don't. So that's something to be aware of. The other thing that people sometimes change is this one here, keep original caller ID. So when Dash sends a call to a cell phone or landline, right? So say customer Mary is calling in, it's ringing on your cell phone, you see Mary's cell phone number show up on your cell phone. You're like, oh, I don't know this number. This is probably, those robo dialers trying to get me to extend my auto warranty. So then you let the call to go to voicemail. Maybe you're able to reconnect with Mary and help her out, or maybe she just went on to one of your competitors. So what you can do is uncheck this, right? So now what happens is you're not gonna, when a call comes to you, to your cell phone, you're not gonna see their phone number. Instead, you're gonna see your default number, right? So if we go back to the dashboard here, right? The number that you selected here for your caller ID, that's the phone number that shows up on your cell phone. So that way you know, oh, this is a work call. Let me go ahead and take it. And then hopefully you close the deal and make some money. Soft phone, you can add a soft phone directly here. There is a warning message here basically about VoIP and wireless technology, and basically calling 911 from a mobile VoIP phone is not advised, just because you may not be at the physical address that is normally associated with your number. And then here you give it a device name, and then it looks like, oh, this is set up for a third party. So you would copy the username, you click on the set password to copy the password, and then the account realm, and you would use that to program the device or the application. You can also add a web phone here. And you basically just give it a name, and then you click on create device. You do need eventually to assign that web phone to a user so someone can log in, right? The web phone uses your dash login information. So that's something to keep in mind. All right, next up we've got the greetings manager. So here you see your greetings on your account. The source, right, TTS means text to speech, meaning you created this on the virtual receptionist text to speech greetings. Recording means you recorded it over the phone, and then upload means you upload the file. Now, you can always download any of these so that way you can listen to them, and that would determine if they're relevant. You can click on the little wrench icon here, so you can change the name to make it something more easily identifiable to you, or just delete it if it's no longer needed. You also have the option here to add greetings. So this would be if you have a .wav or MP3 file you want to upload. You give it a name, you find the file, and then you click on create greeting to upload it. All right, groups, also referred to as ring groups. You click on add group, you give it a name and an extension number, and then you click and drag the people that you want to be in the group, and then you click on create group. Once a group is created, you can then click on the name. So you can always change the name, and then you have the group call attempts. Basically how many times the inbound caller can reach out to your staff members that are in the group. You have little arrows here to the right, so you can change that ring through times or attempts. And then click on Save Changes. And if you click on the members box, you can see I have a deleted user, so I can remove that person. I can add additional users if I'm so inclined. Click on Select, and now they're here. Now, along the top here, these are timestamps. This last one here, you can edit. Right, so you can make it 600 or 60, what have you. But that's your total ring time for the call to be in the group. You can also click distribute here, so now you can ring your staff members in order. Right, now if you don't like this order, for instance, let's say John has a special project that I want him to focus on, so I want to move him I click on his name and drag him down here to the bottom. All right, let's say I'm going to put Jose up here, further up, do something like that. Now, obviously, I haven't actually changed the ring order yet, all right? It's still going to start with John, then go to Gene, then Jan, then what is this, Michael, Duke, and then Jose. But if I click distribute again, now it's going to start with Jose and go down in order. These are sliders, so I can adjust the ring times for individuals, so I can have like some more overlap if I'm so inclined. Now those are the only routing options available to groups. Queues have, again, different routing options available to them. Groups can have an extension number, right? So this is where, and you can have multiple if you want, but this is what your staff members would use to transfer calls to a different group. Groups can have their own phone number, right? Now this phone number is going to bypass your virtual receptionist, right? So these people dial this number, they're going right into the group and start ringing your staff members. So let's say a customer calls this number at 2 in the morning, and if your staff members are using their personal cell phones, their cell phones could be on their users, right? They could be getting calls at 2 in the morning. So that's the disadvantage of having a group have its own phone number. Now, if you have a 24-hour hotline, it's perfect, right? It just goes in, rings the staff members, etc. Some other, I guess I should go over some of the differences here for groups and queues. Queues, currently you can only use VoIP devices, right? Soft phone, web phone, or SIP phone. Groups, you can use cell phone, landlines, as well as your VoIP devices. Queues, your staff members can log themselves in and out of the queue, right? So at the end of their shift, like, all right, I'm out. They won't take calls coming into that queue, right? Whereas in a group, once you're in a group, you're in a group. Only an admin can take you in and out of a group. And then queues can only have either a phone number or an extension number, whereas a group can have both. All right, group features, ringback. If you enable this, this will play back a file for the inbound caller to listen to until one of your staff members picks up. The main thing is that you want to make sure that the length of this file matches your total ring time of the group, because the system will not loop the file for you. So let's say your ring time is 120 seconds, but your hold music file or your ringback file here is only 60 seconds long. After 60 seconds, right, the file stops playing. The system treats it like the inbound caller has reached the end of the ring time, and if there's a multiple ring attempts, right, it'll start back over at the top. If you only set it to one ring through attempt, then it will either end the call or send it to the next action. You can upload, right, .wav, .mp3, recorded in mono under 1 megabyte. Next action, which I just referenced. So if no one picks up, right, you want to have this enabled. Where do you want the caller to go? And you have a pull down here. Right, you can send it back to your virtual receptionist, one of your other attendants. You can send it to one of your ACD queues. You can send it to a specific device, another group, a specific user, or a voicemail box. Allow call forward. If you enable this, that means your users can make use of call forwarding to send calls that go to them to their backup device. And then caller ID prepend, this is for your VoIP phone users. Right, you can add additional text or numbers in front of the caller ID, so again the staff members know what kind of call they're getting. Oh, there's no fee associated with groups. They're just one of the core features of Dash. All right, numbers. This is your numbers manager. So you can see where you're making use of numbers. And then you can see your spare numbers. If you actually want to get rid of a number from your account, keep an eye up here where it says numbers and buy. When I click on the little box in front of a phone number, now I have the option here to delete. Wants to make sure I want to. I say yes. and now it's removed from my account. So now I just saved some money on this particular account. You also have the option here, oops, I skipped ahead there. The buy option, right? It's still that local or toll-free option that we saw previously under main number. It's also the same, shows up in groups. It'll show up under users, etc. Any place you can add a number to, you have the option to buy a local or toll-free number. Port is interesting term. It's you're moving a number from one carrier to another. That's what porting is. And here you can start the process. Give it a name. Give it your local or toll-free. Click next, and then it wants you to upload a copy of your bill. After that, it will have you download a blank letter of agency, and it's going to basically asking you to fill that out and sign it, and then re-upload the completed and signed version of the LOA. There's a couple notices it wants you to acknowledge, put a little check mark in front of, and then you click on submit, and that sends that documentation to our porting team. Once you successfully submit, you'll get an email from the system automatically generated saying, hey, you've submitted a port request. Usually by the next business day, you should get a second email from our porting team saying, yes, we did get your porting request. Here's what to expect about the porting process. And that lets you know they've actually submitted the port request. So it's actually making its way through the entire process now. If for some reason you didn't get that second email, or you didn't get any email, right? You're like, I don't think it actually went through. You can always email porting@virtualpbx.com. We just need that completed and signed LOA and a copy of your bill, and we can start the porting process without going through the system. Regarding that letter of agency, the LOA, it's going to ask for the company information associated with the phone number that you're porting, or phone numbers. That information should match what your current carrier has on file for that phone number, right? So say you're porting from AT&T to VirtualPBX, whatever AT&T has on file in relation to that phone number for the company name, the address, and who's authorized to sign it, that all needs to match up with what AT&T has on file. It does need to be signed, whether that's a physical signature or a digital signature. Either one is fine. Just don't type the name in twice. We'll get the documents. We enter in the information, and then we send the files over. Then we have to wait, right? We have to wait for AT&T to respond and let us know that everything is fine. If everything is fine, then they'll give us a release date, right? Once we get that, we let you know saying, hey, your number should port on this day. If there's a rejection, right, there's something wrong with the LOA, right, they'll let us know. They'll give us an email saying address mismatch or end user, authorized user mismatch or whatever. They're not going to give us specifics, right? So if there's an address mismatch error, they're not going to say, oh, you missed a digit in the street, right? Or your zip code was off, your transposed numbers on a zip code. They just tell us it's wrong, right? So we verify that we have the information right, like we didn't have a typo. And assuming that's the case, then we let you know, we got this error. You're going to need to confirm with AT&T what they have on file for you. And then we can resubmit after that. Generally speaking, toll-free numbers, about 5 business days for a port to complete, assuming everything is correct. Local number is going to vary. Like a Google Voice number, I've seen those port by the next business day. But the average tends to be about 2 to 3 weeks, even if everything is correct. All right, users. So you see all the users on the account. Little boosted icon means this person is an admin, whereas the gray person icon is a standard user. To create a user, you click on add user, and then you enter their, let's try that again. All right, you enter their name. And then their email address. Oh, interesting. The system's not letting me put in shift. So the email address used for login needs to be unique for each user. And then you create a password and then an extension number. Now, I started this system with extension 1000, so it's telling me the next available one is 1012. I can change that, right? I can make it 4310 if I wanted to. And then we have the other options down here. Now, by default, the system will create a voicemail box that's tied to this user. So meaning, if I create this user and I add a VoIP phone to them, they can pick up that VoIP phone, hit *98 on their phone, and it'll take them directly to this voicemail box I just created for them. They can then create their PIN number for their voicemail box as well as their voicemail greeting, and the system will walk them through it. Include in the user directory, right, just so they can show up in the Smart PBX directory. You can toggle this off and on later. Send emails to an alternate address. If you check this, you need to include an email address here. This email address will supersede the email address used for login when it comes to things like voicemail delivery, password resets, soft phone information, that sort of thing. And then the last one here, send credentials to the user. So if you just need to add one person, you click on create user. If you need to add multiple, create user and add another. Once a user is created, you can click on their name. So here you can change their name. You can change their email address and password. You can also send them the password reset email. You can change the voicemail box PIN number. Again, here are the options to send to an alternate address as well as show up in the user directory. This is a pull down where you can change an admin to a user or a user to an admin. This is the time zone, so you can select the correct time zone. This top box is the search box, so that's typically the easiest thing to use. This is the display language, so you have English, French, German, or Russian. The ringing timeout in seconds, the default is 20. So this is how much time Dash will try to reach out to the devices on the user, right? So trying to reach their phones for 20 seconds. For landlines and VoIP, 20 seconds is typically plenty. If you're sending calls to a cell phone user, you're going to want to increase that to 45 seconds to 60. You can click on the extensions box, so you can add additional extensions to a user. All right, here you've got users or phone numbers for a user. So you can, again, add from spare by numbers, so they can have multiple numbers. And here's where you would turn on SMS for a user. Now, if you're going to use SMS on a user, they can only make use of one device, and that device being the VirtualPBX soft phone. They cannot have multiple devices. They do need to have the caller ID feature enabled, and we'll get into all of that. When it comes to devices, you can add from spare devices here. So if you add it on the devices page, you can then add them to devices to the user here. You can also just add new devices directly here. Say for the soft phone. And so here on the user, you have the option to change it from use third-party application to use a VirtualPBX application. give it a name. You click on create device here, and then you do click save changes. And once you do that, then Aaron here is going to get an email with his username and login, so he can log into the softphone app. If he's using it on his mobile phone, he can just go to the relevant app store and download it. If he's using it on a desktop, you're going to need to get the download links. It's if you go to the VirtualPBX site, I would just do a search under softphone, and that should get you to the softphone support page. And then there will be download links there for the Windows and Mac versions. So user features, caller ID number. This works for any user that has their own phone number. If you're going to make use of the SMS messaging, you do want to turn this on and then click on Save Changes. Call forwarding. So you have off, on, and failover mode. Now turning it off or on, your users can do themselves via the user portal. But you can, as an admin, you can turn it on, and you're just putting in +1 area code and phone number for where you're forwarding to. Now this phone number should not be a device already on the user. All right, so this is their backup device. Now failover mode is for your VoIP phone users. This basically is when the system detects that the VoIP phone becomes unregistered, that the system picks up the phone, it's not registered, and then will automatically forward to the forwarding device. And then any changes you make, you click on Save Changes. Hot desking is a VoIP feature. If you click enabled, right, you click enter in a hot desk ID. So this is for use when you're in an office environment where people may be switching desks from day to day, right? So on Tuesday, I'm sitting at desk 7. I go to the VoIP phone. I pick up the phone. I hit *11. That turns on hot desking on that phone. It asks me for my hot desk ID. It will then tell me calls will be sent to this device. End of my day, I hit *12, turns off hot desking. Next time I come into the office, someone's already sitting at desk number 7. So I go to desk 32, and I sit down, do the same thing, *11, etc. Oops. Voicemail box, again, it's already enabled because that was created with the user. If you have voicemail transcription, I believe that is a plan-specific feature, but basically it would put the voicemail in text form for you. Voicemails to email, this means we're sending you an email with an attachment of the voicemail so that you can just double click on it and listen to it on your computer. And that's why that's attached. And then you have the option here to delete after the email has been sent out. The reason that's an option is voicemail boxes can hold up to 100 messages. After that, if they try to leave a message, they get the message saying, hey, the voicemail box is full, try again later. Fax box, your users can have their own individual fax box. You can click enable. Right, you can select from a spare number. You can buy a new number. Right, just search by area code. And the reason for a local number is that sometimes faxing to toll-free can be problematic. Or you can assign an extension, right? So you can get a second extension for a user, say 399. There's no results, so then that means that's a free, right? So then I can add it here, click select extension, and then I can click on Save Changes. And so now this user has a fax box that goes directly to an extension. The downside of that is you're relying on the person who's faxing to you to know the extension number and to be able to send faxes to an extension, right? So if they're on an analog fax machine that has a handset where they can listen for the greeting, right? So they can enter the main number, they hear the greeting, then they can hit 399 in this case, and then hit send fax on their fax machine. Fax goes off. In some fax machines, right, they can enter the phone number and put pauses after the number and then the extension number. Again, that should still go through. But some machines don't have those options. And also your electronic fax services may not allow faxing to an extension. So I generally recommend just make use of a phone number. Conference bridge. If you enable it, that means this person can host a conference, and then the only thing you need to add is a PIN number, and then you would click on Save Changes. Your staff members can adjust this PIN number themselves via the user portal. Follow Me is for multiple devices. So if you click Enabled, then you need to choose which devices you're going to use, and then you got your total ring time up here. And then you can click Distribute, and just like in ring groups, right, you can click and drag and change the order around as you see fit. All right, you can do sliders. I can change this to be, say, 60. That's not sure why it's not letting me. But normally you can change it to a different amount. Music on hold, your users can have their own hold music if you want them to. You would just enable and upload .wave.mp3 recorded in mono. And then you have customized call recording. So when you first enable it, it looks like this. Basically, you need to tell the system, okay, what calls do you want to have recorded? All right, inbound internal means a coworker called me. All right, inbound external means a customer. Right, an external person called into the system. Outbound internal means I'm calling a coworker. Outbound external means I'm calling a customer. And then you would click on Save Changes. Voicemail boxes. So this will show all your voicemail boxes on the account. Any that are associated with the user will have their name show up here as well. You can create your own voicemail boxes. For like a groups, for example, you just give it a name, voicemail box number, and a PIN number. Once it's created, under Advanced, sorry about that. You have greeting media, so you can upload a voicemail greeting file to the voicemail box. You can also call into the voicemail box once you create the PIN number. The temporary file is for like out of office, right? I'm on vacation. So if you have something selected for temporary, it will supersede the media file until you put the temporary file back to none. Recipients. So your user voicemail boxes already have one recipient built in. You can add additional ones here. For any voicemail box that you create separately, you would want to add at least one recipient, so someone's notified when a voicemail is left. And then under options, once you've added the greeting media and recipients, you can then change the voicemail box to say it's already set up. And then here you have the options for the delete after notification, as well as attach messages to email. Advanced routing. This is mostly right now for direct inward system access, or DISA. What that does is it allows a cell phone or landline user to be able to call into your system, log in, and then make an outbound call, so that the outbound caller ID isn't their cell phone number, for example, but instead your main company number. So to enable, you click on the enable feature. It automatically has a PIN number. Now, I generally recommend also adding an extension number, so that way if a bad actor is trying to make use of your system, they need to find both the extension number and a PIN number, so it's two pieces of information versus just the one. So now your staff members, from their cell phone, call into your main number that rings to the virtual receptionist. They enter this extension, and then the system will ask them for the PIN number. They'll hear dial tone again. They enter the area code and phone number that they're going to reach out to. And instead of their cell phone number showing up as caller ID, it's your main number. All right, so let me disable that real quick. But what would show up would be back here under the dashboard. All right, it's just the number under the caller ID. Now, by default, this does not show up as available under new accounts just because of the potential for someone figuring out the PIN number and making outbound calls on your account and you not knowing about it right away. But if it's something you want enabled, you just need to let our support or account service team know, and we can get that enabled for you. The call logs, this shows your call history on the account. Right, green arrow to the right means it's a call that came into the system. And then you click on it, you can get some other details, and you can see here it went to a web phone and no user response. Basically, the user did not answer the call. Likely means it went to voicemail. Right, the left pointing arrow, that means that's an outbound call, and you can get some idea of, okay, they use their web phone and they were dialing this other number. Little fire hydrant icon here allows you to report a call. This creates an email that goes to support@virtualpbx.com. You're going to want to type in the body of the email basically what you experienced, like you had bad audio, your phone actually didn't ring, etc. You can download these files as Excel files. You can do custom, so you can change the date range if you need to. Down here at the bottom, we got feature codes. I've mentioned a couple of these. These are essentially dial pad shortcuts to access some of the features of Dash. Most of them are associated with VoIP phones specifically. However, the *97 here, you can do that from a cell phone. You'd have to dial into your phone number first, but then you can hit *97. All right, so that's the dashboard. Next up, we got ACD queues. ACD stands for Automatic Call Distribution. It is a call center feature. As I mentioned before, the standard queues are $15 or $30 per month per queue, depending on your plan. There's also ACD Queues Pro, which I believe start at $99. If you end up being interested in these, you're going to want to talk to our account services team to verify the pricing. Once to create a queue, you click on Add New Queue. I'm just going to go here under the gear icon of an established queue. You give it a name, you can give it a phone number, and then you've got the routing strategy. So this is on most idle, meaning whoever's been waiting for the call the longest gets the next call that comes in. You also have round robin, which basically will equalize out over time. You have ring all under the standard queues, which means it rings everybody at the same time. You have least calls, which means least amount of connected calls. Right, so say Bob has spoken to 2 people, Mary has spoken to 5. Under least calls, Bob gets the next call that comes in. And then there's least offers, which is the combination of missed calls and connected calls, right? So any call that's been sent their way. So let's say in that 2 and 5 scenario, let's say Bob's been offered 20 calls, right, but spoke to 2. Mary's been offered 5 calls, but spoke to all 5. Under least offered, right, Mary gets the next call that comes in. Now, in both of those last 2 scenarios, let's say Dylan logs in, right? So the other 2 have already been in for a little bit. He's at 0 on both. He gets the next call that comes in until he equalizes with one of the others. Hold treatment, you can, again, upload .wav.mp3 recorded in mono. Under ACD Queues Pro, you have more options. You have things like you can announce their wait in line, or their expected wait time, as well as have different media files play at different points. The queue timeout is measured in seconds. This is how much time people can wait on hold. The queue call limit, this is the number of people you're allowing to wait on hold. Now this is on top of who's already talking to your staff members, right? So Bob and Mary are already talking to staff or inbound callers. You can have 4 more people wait on hold. Timeout immediately if empty. If you enable this, this means if you have no staff members logged in and a call comes into this queue, treat that call as if it already hit this 3,600 second time limit. Escalation queue, This is if your staff members are busy, you can send callers to a secondary queue. And then escalation call flow after timeout. After this 3,600 seconds expires, where are you going to send them? Right, in this case, I'm sending them to a voicemail, but I can have no escalation, meaning the call will just end. Right, I can send them back to a different attendant. I can send it to a specific device. I can send it to a specific user, the directory, one of my groups. I can have a media file play, etc. Agent behavior, agent recovery time. After they're done with a call, this is how much time they have before the system will offer them another call from this queue, usually in the 15 to 30-second range. Force away on reject or missed. If this is enabled, that means if an agent misses a call or otherwise doesn't answer a call, the system will automatically put them in away mode until they mark themselves as ready again. And then agent connect timeout, how much time we're trying to reach the agent. 20 seconds, typically plenty of time since they're all on VoIP devices. Over here we got the members icon. And this gives you the list of everyone who's available to be in your queues. If you click on manage members, you'll hear these are the list of other people. So these aren't available in your queues yet. If you click on them, then you can click on add as members and then they shift over. So now they're available to be in the queues. If you go back to the queues and you click on a queue name, right, you click on add agents. So this will allow you to move the available people over into the queue. You just click and drag, and then you would click on save. And then once you have staff members assigned to, or agents assigned to a queue, you can click add managers. You can choose among those staff members to be a manager for that queue, right? So a manager is technically an agent within the queue. They just have slightly greater access. Now, for your staff members, when they log into Dash, right, they would click on ACD queues up here. And then they click on begin session at the top there. And then you'll see here that I'm in this queue. And right now I'm red, meaning I'm marked away. I can mark myself as ready. So now I'll turn green. If I'm on an inbound call, I'll be blue. If I'm on an outbound call, I'll be yellow. If I'm on wrap-up time, I'll be on gold. Up here, this little phone icon, your users can select which VoIP device they want to use. They should select one. And then they go to lunch, right? They would mark themselves away, end of their day, end their session. All right, blacklists. This lets you create a list of phone numbers that cannot connect to your system, i.e. Based on the inbound caller ID. So you click edit blacklists. You click add to create a new list. Otherwise, you can click on an existing list. You give it a name. And then block anonymous. If you turn this on, that means if we get invalid caller ID, then we'll block the call from reaching your system. Otherwise, you would click on add number, and then you put +1 area code and phone number for every phone number that you want to block from reaching your system. All right, so any of these phone numbers that try to call you, well, okay, let's hit save, and you have to get back to settings. So then any list over here on the right under selected, right, any phone numbers that are on these lists, when they try to call any of your phone numbers on your account, they get a busy tone. Dynamic caller ID, this is a plan-specific feature. This allows you to create rules to change your outbound caller ID. All right, so you would create new rule, and we'll go to this one here first. So this one, I set up a feature code, *71, so that whenever any of my users from their VoIP phone, they hit *71 and then they dial out to who they're reaching to, the phone number that shows up on their outbound caller ID is this phone number. And I can select a phone number on any of my phone numbers on the account. All right, this other way is this one up here, is I'm saying, hey, whenever staff member is calling a 408 phone number, I'm having this phone number display as the outbound caller ID. Again, you can select from any phone number on your account. If that's something you're interested in, again, you need to talk to our account services team. The faxes, this is your fax manager, so you can look at any fax box on the account, both inbound and outbound, basically see what's going on. And then the email to fax logs will give you information about why a fax didn't go out. Like if you have one here, there'd be a little eyeball icon over to the far right under details, and that will give you information about why the fax didn't go out, like invalid attachment, or someone used their personal email address versus their company email address. Monitor, this is a plan specific feature, but it allows you to see the status of your staff members. Right, so again, green, waiting for a call, blue on an inbound, red marked away, yellow outbound, gold on a wrap up time. You also have the options to see who's available or who's actually busy. Also over here, you've got where you can see parked calls and their parking number, if you're making use of the parking feature codes. Number manager basically takes you to your numbers, your spare numbers, and your active numbers. The recording manager, this takes you to recordings.virtualpbx.com, so you can see your call recordings, you can listen to them, you can download them, you can delete them from the account. Your plan has recording storage as part of its allotment. You'd want to double check that, because once you go over, you're going to have an overage fee associated with that. I believe that's been recently changed in terms of the levels and the fees, so you definitely want to double check with account services. Reports, this goes to advanced reporting. This is a plan specific feature. This allows you to create your own reports, much more granular than the call logs that we looked at before. You can see like agent call reports, the durations of calls, that sort of thing. Voicemails, this is the voicemail manager. Right, so you can go to a voicemail box, see what messages they have, see the date that the call came in from, the person and their phone number, the duration of the message. You can play that message, download it. You can also, when you select a message, right, I can mark it for deletion, etc. I can send it to a different voicemail box because it went to the wrong person. Right? If you have pages of voicemail, then you could also choose like, oh, I just want to see the new ones, or the ones I've already listened to, etc. Webhooks, this is making use of APIs and webhooks to link Dash to other software. If you're interested in this, you definitely want to talk to our sales team, as they have some more information about it. You can also go to developer.virtualpbx.com and see what we've already done with webhooks and linking to Dash. And then lastly, we have the user portal. So each of your staff members has their own user portal. Right, so in this case, I can see my voicemails, again, the date, the time, the phone number they called from, the phone number they called to, the duration. They can play it back, they can download it. Right, if they click on the icon here, or the box, I can mark it for new, as listened, or as deleted, as well as my sorting options. You have your call history, so you can see your history of calls that came in and out. You also change your date range. Faxes, you can see your inbound or outbound faxes. The contact list, this is everything within your Dash account, right? So as a user, I cannot add to this. As an admin, I can, but like your sales staff wouldn't be able to add their client list to their contact list here. This is just within your Dash account. The conference tab, So over here on the right, this is where your users can adjust their moderator and participant PIN numbers, right? And then they have the options here if they want people when they join to be deafened or muted, as well as to play entry and exit tones. And then they would click save for any changes. Up here, when you're in a conference, right, you can invite other Dash users to your conference. You can lock a conference. You can mute everybody, unmute everybody, hang up, or end the conference. And also when you're in a conference, you can mute a specific participant as well as kick a specific participant. And then under settings and devices, this is where your users can enable their own call forwarding, assuming they don't triple click. Then they put +1 area code and phone number of where they're sending calls to, as well as if they want it to ring on their VoIP phone still, keep the caller ID, etc. They would click save, and they also see the status of their devices. All right, and that is everything. I'm going to go back to the dashboard and hang out in case anyone watching has a question, and then we'll go from there. All right, not seeing any questions, and actually looks like no one is still with us. So I'm going to go ahead and end the stream. Thank you for your time today. We'll be back next Tuesday, and I will see you later.